What's going on, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. It's time for Nick at Night, my weekly non-spoiler comic book review show. Man, we got a lot of books to go through, so let's get started right now. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to throw our grading scale up right now. So what I do is before I go into the book, I'm going to go ahead and put the cover of that book on the grading scale so you can see where it stacks up against the other books that came out that week. So we're going to go into Marvel first. We have Predator issue number 3 from Ed Brisson, and I think Kev Walker is on the art for this one. It's a fairly interesting story. We basically follow this female character who's grown up, although in issue number 1, we do learn this tragic history of her family. Her mother and father, and her colony, if I'm not mistaken, was actually wiped out by a predator, and she's kind of devoted her life to tracking predators down and the one that killed her family specifically down. So she's actually partnered up with the AI that kind of runs her spaceship. So she's kind of hopping from area to area, getting supplies, things like that. So this issue continues where we left off in the previous issue, where she's on this one planet and she's trying to get some supplies and everything, and she actually runs into a predator at the end of the last issue. So far, this run is not predator heavy right now. We're following our main character, and she's just trying to survive and trying to hunt down other predators. So this one here, she's really kind of a badass. She takes this predator on. It's a pretty interesting battle. She's got some demons. She's got some things that are weighing heavy on her conscience when she met some strangers that were kind of threatening her in the past. So she's not really like totally brutal and ruthless. She's actually got a little bit of humanity in her, some heart, things like that. It's not a bad story at all, but if you're looking for like a Predator-centered book right now with just lots of action, lots of information about Predators himself, you're not really going to get it in this so far. We're only 3 issues in, but it is still intriguing. It's still fun. You do learn a couple little things about Predators here and there, but again, it's not a Predator-centered book. As far as the art style goes, it is pretty cool. I do like that. I'll show you a little bit of what you can expect art-wise from the book. So, we've definitely seen worse stuff. I can't remember Kev Walker being on anything else. Perhaps I've seen his work in the past, just not coming to mind at the moment. So basically, like I said, she's just kind of scrounging around for some scraps, trying to hunt some predators when she can. And she's got that like real quippy kind of AI that helps her out from time to time. So Predator, it's not a bad read, but if you want a more Predator-centered book, this might not be the book for you just yet. Next Marvel book we're going to get into is Thor issue number 28. We have Al Ewing and we have Donny Cates on here, and we do not have Nick Klein on the art, but we do have an interesting art style in here, so it's kind of weird from time to time, but I'll get into the art in just a moment. So where we left off with Thor right now, we're basically past the Hulk right now. We're past that whole battle. He's met up with Eddie Brock. He's met up with Venom, and they're essentially taking on this other symbioted weird god that they're kind of having to deal with right now. And their tactic on taking this god on is to kind of merge and become one, right? Everybody likes a fusion story. Here's your fusion story. We just got done with Hulk Thor, and now we're going to get Thor Venom. Venomized Thor just momentarily in this book, and they kind of help take care of the day. So we do get a little bit of that. It does play on Donald Blake a little bit as well. I won't go into exactly how, but we do get a little Donald Blake action in here. So we do revisit where he is. He's essentially being tortured forever, and Loki's kind of set that up. If you remember the previous Donald Blake story in the last Donny Cates a couple arcs ago. So we do touch a little bit on that, and we get to see how it's relevant for this more modern arc here, and then we can kind of understand where the story is going to go in general. So art-wise, again, it has its moments where it's really, really badass. It's doing some pretty cool things, but then it has these moments too where it's just like not really detailed enough in the facial expressions and that heavy, bold outline. It just doesn't really work for me from time to time. So I don't know. Art-wise, it could be better, but it has those moments where it's really good. It's kind of like JRJR in my opinion. Some panels are like, what are you doing? And some panels are really nice and detailed. So story-wise, it's pretty action-packed. You do get a lot of that, and you get this real like ominous closure to this issue, and where you have a little bit of understanding of where this is going to go, and it's not going to bode well for Thor. So that is going to be interesting for sure. So Thor issue number 28, not a bad read. If you've been reading it so far, continue through it. It's going to tie in a lot of other stuff. And you don't really need to know what's happening inside of Venom to understand what's happening in here, which is the best part. Next Marvel book we're going to go into is Moon Knight issue number 16 from Jed MacKay, and it's a great continuation of the Moon Knight story that we all know and love right now. I'm really enjoying the second arc a little bit more than the first arc, to be honest with you, because it's a little bit more grounded. It's more about Moon Knight facing off against some vampires, which we had a little bit of history with in the first volume, so I did like that, or in the first arc of this run. The art style continues to be great. Moon Knight's having to deal with the fact that he can't take on all these threats by himself, as he kind of explored in the last few issues when talking to his different identities. And so he's actually calling upon his friends to help him go to the next step. He was just recently got his ass kicked by some new villains that got introduced. The main bad right now, essentially Vampire King right now in the area, has a couple new hired assassins to take out Moon Knight, and they really did a number on him in the last issue until he got some backup. So now he's accepting the fact that he can't take these guys on by himself, and so he's getting help from other people. He actually goes into Chinatown in here and tries to ally with somebody that might, not want to be on the same page as him, and that was a really cool interaction in there. And then we get a little Hunter's Moon as well. He's a little bit pissed off. He's like, I can step in where Moon Knight fails. And is he successful? Maybe not. Maybe not. Towards the end of this issue here, we don't quite know what's going on with Hunter's Moon. But the story continues to be very interesting. The art style is very much as strong as it was in the first part of this run. Give you a little hint at the art style in here. It's very radiant where it needs to be. Moon Knight's drawn really well. It's a style that had to grow on me. I had to read 3 or 4 or 5 issues before I really appreciated what was going on from an art perspective. So that's been awesome. I do really enjoy that. So Moon Knight, issue number 16, continues to be a strong series, and it's one of the better Marvel books out there for sure. Pick it up. Next Marvel book we read was another Spider-Man book. It seems like we can't go more than a few weeks without getting another Spider-Man book. This is Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man, issue number 1. Got that cool variant cover there as well. I'm not really too familiar with the creative team on here. We have B. Earl and Taboo on the writing, and then we have Juan Ferreira on the art. I'm familiar with the artist, but not necessarily familiar with the writers in here. The art's probably the strongest part about this book. It is very, very trippy. It's kind of like if Andrea Sorrentino did like a Spider-Man book. And Andrea Sorrentino is not a great example, but it's very trippy. It's very surreal. It's very like dream state. It's like a Sandman meets Spider-Man kind of a thing. It's very weird and just kind of crazy. These are all essentially hallucinations in a way that Peter Parker is having. He's actually in the West Coast right now doing some experiments with a new friend. They're tapping into some water frequency technology, and it's kind of going through a day in the life of Peter Parker here, and he keeps having all these weird hallucinations and whatnot. So, we're still trying to uncover a lot of the mystery behind why this is all happening and everything. He gets some ideas from some friends, and it kind of starts putting the pieces together on how to make his little experiment work. And then it kind of goes wrong, right? It's that thing where it's like, be careful what you wish for. He's working to unlock this technology. He does, but what kind of consequences go with that? Again, I'll give you a hint of that art, because I think the art, again, is the strongest point about this book. The story overall is not really doing it for me. I don't know when this is necessarily. I don't know if it's way in the past or if it's in the future. There's not a whole lot of reference to what's going on in the current run or anything like that, so I can't quite place it. If I just missed it, let me know in the comments if you picked up on that. But overall, there's not really a whole lot of answers in this book. There's a lot of questions, a lot of weird stuff happening. And that's pretty much it. That's all we really know so far in Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Let me know what you guys thought of it, though, if you're reading it down below. The next Marvel book we're going to get into is X-Men issue number 16 from Gary Dugan. And the best part about this book is we are completely out of the Eternals Judgment Day nonsense that's been going on right now. So if you want to get out of that and you want to get more into X-Men stuff, you can pick up 15 and 16, and it's pretty much event free. So what are we doing inside of the X-Men book? Where we left off basically was Forge was educating Cyclops on this whole Children of the Vault situation that's going on right now. He's kind of created this vault with some very dangerous post-humans. They've had thousands of years of evolution in there, and they're extremely strong, and they're basically in like a matrix that Forge has set up. So we have this other part where we knew that Sync and X-23 were stuck in there as well, and they battled their way out, and Darwin had to stay behind and things like that. So basically they're on this big recovery mission, this No Mutant Left Behind mission right now to get Darwin out of there. And we basically have Forge doing some real shady shit in order to get in there and infiltrate. So basically this is an issue where we have Forge going in there trying to get Darwin out, but there's a lot of surprises inside of the vault here, especially towards the end when he tries to get Darwin out. Of course, you have a lot of drama on the other side with the Summers brothers. You have Havoc and you have Cyclops, of course, not getting along. Of course, some of their actions lead to awakening a very, very strong post-human human in there, and they ends up kicking a lot of their asses and things like that. And so it takes the whole team to bring them in, and they kind of simmer down after they realize what kind of mistake they made there. But I like the ending of this book too. It's very, very, I don't know. It brings a lot of questions about kind of the ethics of the Resurrection Protocol, especially when you understand the implication of the very end of this book. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how we kind of get out of that. So I'll show you a little bit of the art style in here in case you're wondering what kind of art you can expect. It's actually a pretty fun read. I'm liking X-Men right now, especially since it's out of the tie-in right now, especially since it's out of the event, and it's more focused on just more interesting plot lines. So I do like that. Let me know what you guys are thinking about X-Men 16 if you read it down below. All right, we're actually out of Marvel. We're going to go into DC next. We're going to start with a book that's just really, really great. It's a lot of fun. We have World's Finest, issue number 8 from Mark Waid and Dan Mora on the art. And like I said, this book is a lot of fun. It has like this nostalgic vibe to it, and we actually do learn in Batman versus Robin, I think it's issue number 2, that World's Finest does indeed take place in the past, and Batman versus Robin takes place more in the current time frame, whenever that might be. It's not totally in sync with the continuity right now with canon and everything, but it's somewhere in the more modern present, and this World's Finest takes place a little bit in the past. And so that does explain some of the feel, some of the characters, some of the just some of the vibe you get when reading the book. It's almost like reading a like a Lethal Protector or something like that, something that has a little bit more classic vibe to it. So that is pretty cool, and that kind of explains it a little bit more. I will also say the page quality in here, it's got like that newspaper gritty feel to it. And so I think it makes the art really pop in here, and that is great as well. So they need to keep doing that because that is awesome. So where are we at with the story right now? So basically, we have this strange person that kind of crash landed the way that Superman crash landed on Earth, but he came from a whole different area, very similar story to Superman. And so they're just trying to figure out what to do with him. He's super powered. And so they're basically bringing him into the Teen Titans, and they're trying to do some basic testing of like his powers, right? Like how can he control and how can he become useful? He's actually dubbed Boy Thunder in here as well, and he's not too thrilled about that, but you know, whatever. So basically this big, huge catastrophic event happens all over the world, and so all the superheroes are running around, and it's kind of his day to shine. And so he's kind of put up to the test, and he's put in front of a challenge, and he doesn't know if he can complete it. And he gets a lot of encouragement and things like that. And everything kind of works out at the end of the day. But this kid's got a lot of trauma still. He's still trying to work out a lot of the pain that he left in his previous, planet. And so he's really relying on some of the other heroes to provide him some guidance on what to do and how to control himself and things like that. So yeah, it is pretty interesting. I do like the story so far. It's really great. I'll show you a little bit of the art style. Of course, it's Dan Mora, and it's on this great paper quality. So it's going to pop even more. I'm loving that. It's just so cool. I really like World's Finest. There was one issue, I want to say it was like issue 5 maybe. That's just not great at all. But I would highly recommend this series. It's been a lot of fun so far. And then Batman versus Robin's not a bad one either. And it's a spinoff of World's Finest. So if you'd like that, try that one out too. But let me know if you're reading this down below. All right, the next DC book we're going to go over is number 6. We have Flashpoint Beyond. This is such a cool book, especially if you're a Flashpoint fan, a Flashpoint Paradox fan. It's actually written by a few different people. I think I just said Jeff Johns in the past, so I apologize for that. We have Jeff Johns, we have Tim Sheridan, and we have Jeremy Adams as the writers on here. And man, this is the epic conclusion of Flashpoint Beyond. And I will say, I think it delivers on all fronts. This has been one of the best little DC stories, little 6-issue stories that I've read in a long time. And it's just a big dramatic conclusion between Rip Hunter and the Time Masters versus Batman versus the Bruce Wayne. It's all about Thomas Wayne kind of coming to grips with the fact that his reality really is what it is. And when Martha, who is the Joker in this universe, tries to tempt him with different time travel and changing their lives forever, he really doesn't fall for it because it's not really the truth and everything. We have a lot of things with the new Two-Face in here and her daughter, or her son rather. And there's just a lot of crazy stuff that's going on inside this book. I would say the conclusion was very, very, it wasn't very confusing, I don't think. I think it was fairly straightforward. It's not as confusing as some of the other DC stuff in this area, like the Doomsday Clock and things like that. But I would say if you're into Doomsday Clock, if you're into Flashpoint, you really need to pick up Flashpoint Beyond because it was amazing, I thought. Let me know what you guys thought of it down below. All right, another conclusion story. In fact, we got a couple of those still to go on the DC front. We have Aquaman Andromeda. Book number 3 from Ron V and Christian Ward. And man, this book is beautifully drawn. I really love that. I'll give you a little taste of the coloring and the line work and everything in here. Really takes advantage of the space, really kind of blows it out, makes it really trippy, which is awesome. And we do get to discover a little bit more about the origin of this like sphere down below. It's got some kind of a magic background. It's like a prophecy kind of a background to it. It's going to come back and do some kind of damage when it does come back, and especially if it's been tampered with. Basically, we're dealing with a lot of possession, but maybe not possession, but more of like people kind of seeing like their worst fears and then taking those actions out on each other in a way. And so we have Aquaman trying to team up with the remaining sane people and try to get him out of this situation. We have a little bit of Black Manta in here as well. And of course, he's got some other ideas as far as like how to hijack this whole scene. So we're having the balance between this like ship who's basically infecting everybody's minds versus like Black Manta trying to do Black Manta stuff. And so it was a really well balanced, just interesting book. And it's not even like an Aquaman book. He shows up and helps save the day, but like he's not the main character in this book. It's essentially this crew that was sent down to investigate this sphere down below in the ocean. And we do get a little bit of extra dialogue about it through Arthur Curry's eyes. And it's really, really neat. And the ending is really cool, and it's really a beautiful book. So it's only 3 issues, awesome format, really creative art style. It's not about Aquaman, but he's in the book, and it does not take away from the enjoyment at all. So if you have the opportunity to pick these up, I would recommend it. Another conclusion issue that we got this week was Rogues. We have issue number 4 from Williamson, and we have Leo Max and Wordy on here as well from an art and lettering perspective. This was another great ending to a really fun story so far. The best part about this book is it's not like a carelessly put together story about just random villains kind of getting together and pulling off a heist, which that is the plot, but they really take their time to do some really cool character moments in here. And it's not just kind of throwaway moments. They're moments that actually are meaningful and impactful, and you kind of want them to succeed with this mission. Now, they are robbing Grodd in a way, so it's like bad guys robbing bad guys, but you almost feel for these guys almost on both sides, but mostly on our rogue side here. And you kind of want them to succeed, but they go through so much, and they take their time to explain a lot of the trials and tribulations that they had to go through throughout their careers and the different relationships they've had. They take their time to explore those moments, and they kind of slow things down a little bit, and they just do a really good job of making everything really impactful. Now, with that said, they also speed a lot of things up in here too, so they take their time where they need to, but it's really action-paced and really dramatic and impactful when it needs to be in these heavy action scenes. So that's a great balance that he was able to pull off in here. Of course, the size of this issue and everything, it's that prestige format like we talked about previously with Aquaman Andromeda, really takes advantage of the whole space. It's not as, I wouldn't say the composition is as creative as it was in Aquaman, but it's still really impressive what's going on inside of this book. It's just really fun to see all the different action scenes in that size. It really pops out at you. And I would say that they did a really good job of making that pop up happen very often to keep your interest. So this book was great on a lot of fronts. The art was great. The story took its time. It was really well done. I never thought a book about the Rogues would be this interesting, and I was kind of like on the hot seat with this book a little bit when the first issue came out, and then I read the first issue and I'm like, this is brilliant. If they can maintain this pace, this is gonna be a great story. So I'm loving this book so far. If you guys read this one, let me know what you thought about the overall arc in general down below. All right, we're actually out of the big 2. We're gonna go into some Image Comics next. We're gonna go into issue number 4 of Above Snakes from Sean Lewis and Hayden Sherman. What a great issue this was. We were all kind of worried. Issue number 3 didn't really do it for me. Didn't really like what I was seeing in that one. It gave us a couple little things here and there, to help push the story forward just a little bit. But compared to issue 1 and 2, it didn't really do a whole lot for me. This issue, in my opinion, really kind of stepped it up again and brought us back into that issue 1, issue 2 vibe. So basically, we have Dirt. He's actually still on the road right now, still trying to find his killers. He ran into a person very similar to him on the same revenge mission in a way. And he's kind of on his tail too, trying to get to the same ending as that other guy. And they come across a unrecognizable place at first because it's completely trashed, but our main character, our main hero, actually starts realizing that this place is actually where he was married, and his wife is the main reason he's on this revenge mission because this gang killed her. And so it's a very fitting kind of a trap that the enemy has left for him, kind of drawing him into the place where his love started, right? Definitely gets put to the test here, realizing it's a trap. And so we get to see that big battle all kind of play out. Now, there's a character that we've seen in the beginning of most of the issues. We didn't quite know what role he played necessarily in the whole story in general. You get to know what that is in this issue here. So that was a cool little thing to close on that. This book will be over pretty soon. We're on issue number 4. Hayden Sherman on the art is really incredible. I'll show you a little hint of what that looks like. He's got this really awesome art style. At first, it was a little bit odd, I thought, but the coloring is amazing too. It's a little blocky, but you get over that really, really quick. By the end of the first issue, into the second issue, you don't even notice it anymore. It's really interesting what he's been doing in this book. So yeah, this is a great surprise. I like this issue way better than issue number 3, I thought. Above Snakes, let me know if you're reading it. We're going to continue down the image pathway right now. We have issue 5 of Chip Zdarsky's Public Domain. And so this is kind of the fresh start issue. This is the issue where our main character, the father figure, has creative rights now to public domain, making some new stories. And so he's building his ranks right now. He's getting his sons involved. He's getting this exiled assistant from his competitor on board right now. They're trying to find essentially, publishing name and an office space and what kind of stories they're going to write and all that kind of stuff. So we put a lot of the drama behind us, but this issue does introduce some potential drama in the future. We get our office space, we get our big white canvas, we're going to create some new stuff, right? So this issue is, pretty fun. It was kind of a transition from one drama into the next drama kind of an issue. And we're kind of setting up some groundwork now for this new publishing company called Dallas Comics. So yeah, it's been pretty interesting. You get a lot of interactions with the brothers and a lot of comebacks and little fighting here and there and whatnot. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting issue. It's just, again, it's like a filler issue between arcs in a way. So let me know if you're reading Public Domain, and do you like these more grounded stories? Or do you like the up in the sky kind of stories? Let me know. All right, we're going to continue the image train right now. We have Bone Orchard Mythos 10,000 Black Feathers issue number 2. We have Jeff Lemire, Andrea Sorrentino, and Dave Stewart. Just the 3 Musketeers as far as I'm concerned. Whenever they're together, it's always magic, right? And so we are on issue number 2 right now with the continuation story of 10,000 Black Feathers number 1. Basically, we have these 2 characters that met when they were very young, these 2 females, and they're bonding over this like shared story that they're putting together, like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of a story situation going on. So this issue is really fun because it actually puts them in basically their story that they're telling right now. They're wearing armor, they're traveling in unknown lands, they're taking on demons and things like that. But you can hear their characters' dialogue over the conversation that they're also having when they're sitting in their basement, just like eating chips and stuff like that and hanging out. So they're kind of living through the story and trying to develop it at the same time, and that bleeds into the story itself. So it's been pretty fun. I'll give you a little hint of what's going on here. So on the one side over here, you have like that fantasy world coming to life, and then the dialogue is actually a mixture of the actual character dialogue and then their dialogue while developing the story downstairs. So it's a pretty fun take on that for sure. Now, I'm pretty sure that whatever these heroes are facing in their journey is probably pretty relevant to the real life journey that they're going through together at that moment. There's a lot of foreshadowing in here, kind of like, hey, are we going to sit in our basement all day and develop stories, or are we actually going to move on and live our life? Some of that actually starts playing out towards the end of this as the characters grow up and get a little bit older. And now we were introduced to some tragedy that eventually happens to one of the girls in the story. We do get that hint again in here, but we don't have a reason why. We might have a direction of where we're going to get to that point, but whatever that metaphysical evil is, it really hasn't made itself completely known just yet in this story. So we're obviously going to head in that direction eventually. We just haven't quite gotten there yet. We're just getting more context on their relationship. So yeah, Black Feathers, 10,000 Black Feathers number 2, still an intriguing story. It's laying some bread trail down for us to follow. We just need to kind of get some more answers to really keep our attention, I think. But it's a pretty good story so far, so check it out. All right, we're going to jump over to Boom Studios for one issue right here. We have Eve, Children of the Moon. I believe this is volume 2, issue number 1. I had no idea this book was coming out. So Eve was a story that came out, I want to say, maybe a year ago, maybe more. And I think it was only 4 or 5 issues. It had a very interesting premise. Basically, this lone survivor in a world that kind of went to hell due to whatever, global warming or whatever. The parents were kind of scientists. They set up a base on the moon, and they were at first had good intentions and had goodwill, but their motivations turn sour and turn kind of evil pretty quickly. And that whole story develops as you read it there. There's also this really funny robot bear that has like some kind of AI and had protocols installed in them to always protect Eve here, but that bear kind of takes it to the extreme in the first volume as well, and so we learn that the bear kind of becomes one of the villains as well. So where we are in this one is there's some time has passed. Wexley the bear is back for some reason. I'm not entirely sure how that all worked out. I have to revisit volume number 1, and we're basically kind of on this mission right now to do a little bit more exploration, and we come across another potentially genetically created society that's here as well. And so this book is very confusing. I have to reread volume number 1 to really understand everything that's going on in volume number 2. I thought volume number 1 ended in a certain way, and then I'm reading this book and it almost makes me feel like I missed a whole volume, that we learned a whole lot more, or did a whole lot of other things that we didn't do. Let me know if you got that same vibe. If you read this first volume and you jumped into this book, I need to revisit it. What did you guys think? If you read it, let me know down below. All right, we're gonna jump over into some Dark Horse comics just for an issue here too. We got Shaolin Cowboy Cruel to Be Kin, issue number 6 from Jeff Darrow, and we have Dave Stewart on the art, and we have a slew of people on the coloring because this book is punishingly hard for colorists, I would imagine. It's got so much crap going on. It would be insane for one person to actually attack this. So, Shaolin Cowboy. If you've never read a Shaolin Cowboy book before, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to read anything Shaolin Cowboy to understand this character or to understand where we're going. In fact, I didn't read anything prior to this issue. But our character here is on this revenge mission. He made some unlikely allies in the previous issues of this run who are actually assassinated, and so he's after the people that took them out. You know, and of course, in this book's fashion, the leader of the group that took his friends out is some kind of weird, twisted, giant monster alien-looking thing. And so this is the epic battle between our Shaolin Cowboy and that giant monster. And I would say, just like everything else we've read so far in this run, that battle is insane, and I loved every second of it. Everything from like the insane dialogue to just the battle itself and how crazy that battle kind of escalates, the different line work and the different areas that they explore. It's just so cool. It's so fun. It's just such a great read. I highly recommend this book. I can't say enough about it. Of course, this book has a lot of satire about, you know, political views and things like that in here. So basically it's a cross between real life and like a Back to the Future thing when Biff kind of rules the world and he's made his billions of dollars, you know, in his mansions. It's like if you take that one scene from Back to the Future and spread it across the whole part of the country and then fast forward like 100 years, like that's essentially this environment that we're in right now, and it's kind of comical for me at least. I will say at the end of this book, there are a couple other characters they introduce and they are rather upset with the Shaolin Cowboy. I can only imagine that that's probably a callback from a previous volume of this Shaolin Cowboy series in general, and so they're also getting added into the back here. Otherwise, I don't really know what these two characters are up to, and so we're going to get the dramatic conclusion of this here pretty soon, I'd imagine. Shaolin Cowboy, one of the best books out there right now. It's just really fun. The art's insane, the story's pretty cool, and it's just a great book. I'd check it out. All right, and the last book we're going to go over this week was Sacrament, issue number 3, AWA from Peter Milligan. This is actually a pretty fun book. I'm liking this book a lot. It's only 5 issues, or 3 issues in, just a couple more to go. It's actually a fun little exploration about, you know, what religion looks like when we go to the stars, right? We're multiplanetary species. We're going around. We have all these different bases set up. The rules change, right? Laws. You interact with more things. There's like aliens and demons and stuff in this issue. There's this possession, this evil spirit that's haunting this priest. Again, it actually haunted him and his mentor had to actually exorcise this person, exorcise this demon. Way back in the day. Ever since then, he's been kind of losing his faith, which has been pretty interesting to see how that plays out in this book. He's going through the motions, all this stuff. He's got someone looking up to him right now. She's not ordained yet. So it's an interesting, you know, dynamic between those two people. Well, of course, he gets called to action again. He has to perform this exorcism, but how does he do it when he's not really all in it with his heart, right? And so, yeah, it's a pretty fun book. It's pretty gruesome from time to time. There is some graphic things in here, both from a, you know, satanic part to like a fantasy kind of part as well. And so it is really fun though. It's got a lot going for it. And so I'll show you a little bit of the art style because the art's a little bit interesting. We basically have this possessed person over here on the side. and our father has to figure out what he's going to be doing with this, and he's actually with his partner as well, and so she's going to try to help out where she can. So again, it is fun. I mean, the art's not crazy great, but it doesn't need to be, because I think the story is compelling enough in here to really kind of get past any of the art faults here. So, if you want to read something a little bit different, I've never read a story like this one before. If you want something a little different, a little bit more edgy, this is a really fun book to try out. Again, it's only 5 issues. We're 3 issues in. I'll be writing it out to the conclusion. I recommend it. So that was a lot of books. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you did down below in the comments. And if you did, I really appreciate you hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. And as a reminder, I upload tons of stuff on YouTube and on Instagram as well. So if you're not following me on there, go down below in the description. You'll find links to my Instagram channel. And don't forget to hit that bell notification on YouTube so you don't miss out on my next video. But as always, I appreciate you watching the video. I'll see you all in the comments.